If you're new in this channel, welcome. If not, welcome back. As you can tell by looking at the screen, today we will cover how to use the i18n Internationalization framework inside your Next.js 14 application. And if you've been searching the topic on YouTube, chances are you came across my other video on the same topic. This video right here on the right hand side that got a few views already. But to be fair, this video is actually becoming outdated because at the time of the recording the tools were not stable yet. I mean, you still can learn stuff from the old video, but I would recommend you to skip that one and focus on this one instead. The goal of this video is to teach you a similar thing, but this time there's no beta mode involved. And of course, I also would like to reply to some of my viewers. Note that the app router will be used in this tutorial. If for some reason you're still using the pages router, you need to go and check the docs on your own. In this tutorial, I will also use TypeScript and Tailwind CSS. Just follow the exact steps and there's no way this can go wrong. The project code will be linked below. Have a look and support my efforts. And of course, this is the project that we are going to be building today. Only 3 idioms, and in my own case, Portuguese is going to be the default idiom. Let's code this now. I am now inside my terminal and I am about to run this command, which is going to create the Next.js application. So press enter. The project name is going to be i18n. Press enter again. We'll be using TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind CSS. We need the source directory and of course the app router. So this tutorial is using the app router. Yes, and I do not want to customize the default imports, so no. Let's wait until this finishes and then let's open this new project inside Visual Studio Code. Installation done. Time to navigate to the correct folder. So cd into the project name was i18n. Okay, I am inside the correct folder and now I just type code space dot, press enter, and this is going to open the project inside Visual Studio Code for me. There you go. I can now close my terminal and arrange this. Here we can see the folder and file structure that we need in order to make this project work. On the left hand side, this came all with installation. I did not change anything yet. Here in this screenshot we can see what our goal is. And if you pay attention, there's folders and files that we do not have yet. Therefore, we need to create them. Okay? For example, we do not have this messages folder, nor we have the specific locales. In this example, English is one of the locales. In my tutorial, I'm not going to use English, but of course English or any other language works. You just need to make sure that this EN is what stands for English, and it is. But if you're looking for a specific language, you need to make sure that this is a match and it's actually a perfect match. Otherwise, it will not work. To facilitate your life, I will be linking something below that is gonna help you with that. It's just a list for the languages that you might want to use. Then you can figure out what letters you need here. Okay. We also do not have this file or the Locale folder or whatever, but we are going to firstly create all the files and folders, and then we will start working inside of them. So let's do it. Okay, at the root level, let's create our messages folder. So messages, okay? Inside, in this example, we are going to need 3 different JSON files. One for Portuguese, one for French, and the last one for Spanish. So I know that for Spanish, I can go with ES JSON. The next one for French, it's FR JSON. And the last one, which is actually going to be the default, which is Portuguese, it's pt.json. And just leave this like this for now. We'll come back to these files, okay? We are just setting up the basic structure, okay? Cool. And this needs to be at the root level, okay? Let's then move on to the next step. Step number 2 is actually super simple. All we have to do is to copy paste some code. So I'm gonna select everything in here, delete, and paste this code. Okay, this code is actually coming from the official documentation that I will be linking in this video's description. Step number 3, we need the i18n .typescript file inside the source folder. Okay, so inside the source folder, I'm gonna create a new file, and it's called i18n.ts for TypeScript. And pay attention to this convention. You cannot change file names, okay? So now inside this file, I'm gonna one more time copy paste code. We need to create our middleware file. And one more time, this file needs to go inside source. So I'm going to create the new file. I'm going to paste the name to make sure that I do not make a typo. I'm going to press enter. And like I did before, I'm just going to copy paste a bunch of code and leave it as it is. Continuing, we now need to create another folder, Locale, and inside that folder, we need to create the layout.tsx file. But pay attention, this new folder is actually going inside the app folder. Locale. And you need to create this folder exactly the way I'm doing, okay? Now, inside this folder, you create the file, which is called layout.tsx. Boom, done. One more time, I'm going to copy paste some code inside. And don't worry, we'll come back to all of these files and folders when necessary. One last step before installing the package that is going to allow all of this to work. So one more time, still inside app, still inside Locale, we need to create another file. So this file is the usual convention, so it's a page, in this case tsx, because we are going to be doing some logic, and of course we are going to be using TypeScript. And I'm gonna paste the code. And as you can tell now, and you probably realized before if you're following the tutorial, you are getting errors because this package is not yet installed. So this is what we have to do next. Cool, finally it's time for us to install the package that is going to make everything work and will also throw those errors away. So I'm gonna just press enter and wait until all of this is finished. It was super fast, and now we can continue. In the meantime, I went ahead and did the usual file cleanup. So our home page, our page.tsx, this one, okay, came with some code. I got rid of it, and as you can see inside my return, I only have a React fragment which says home inside. I can now run my development server and see if this is working or not. Press enter and let's wait. And we have an error. But it's safe to assume that because we created the JSON files, but they are empty, this error is coming up. So let's copy paste. Let me just copy paste the translations that are going to be used inside this tutorial, and this should fix the error. Let's see if that is true or not. That seemed to be solved one issue, but now we have another issue. And this one is not hard to figure out as well. Remember, this is looking for an English file, and we do not have an English file. But when you install the package, by default, English needs to live inside. So it's a default language. So of course, we need to go inside this source i18n file, and we need to change this because this actually doesn't exist. So to try to fix this right away, I'm just gonna type pt, and this one of course doesn't exist also, so I can do fr and save. Let's see what this does. Boom. So now the problem was fixed, and we are seeing a 404 error because we are still through the URL accessing the English locale, the English idiom that we do not have. So if I just go to pt instead, it doesn't work. Why is this? This is happening because we have not finished updating our files. So we did the changes inside the i18n file, but we still have the middleware file that needs to be updated. And for sure, you already saw a few problems. So I am actually causing these errors on purpose, sorry, but the idea is to make you think why you're not getting this right, okay? And it's a bit easy if you practice this a bit. Trust me, this is simple, cannot get any simpler. So now, so I do not confuse you more, because I already showed you what I wanted to, I'm now gonna correctly update all of the files that I need, and these are the two main ones, okay? And then we'll move on and make things actually work. Let's go. I have now updated my const locales, and a locale is just the idiom, okay, to the locales that we are going to need throughout this project. But of course, this is still throwing an error, although pt is defined in here. And this is only because we need to also update the locales inside the middleware file. Okay, I have now updated my middleware file, and as you can see, I'm using the same locales, and I am using the default locale to be Portuguese. And I also updated my matcher. As you can see, the arrow is not visible anymore, but we are getting some sort of error. But this is another thing for us to fix. So let's continue because we are on track. Let's go. Time to update this layout file. And this is simple. The first thing that I want to change is this lang attribute and set it to Portuguese. Okay? And I also want to update this title, this metadata information. It's not so important, but I want to do it. So boom, done. Okay, now let's try to understand why we are not getting any error, but we are still not getting the translation. Okay, because we have the translations inside our JSON files. The thing is, and where am I? It's in here. We are trying to use the translations coming from the index, and the index came with the installation. So this index is this one, and this title is this one. Easy. But if we grab any file, maybe I can actually open this on the side so we see it better. Notice the following. We are not using index, we are using home instead. Okay, so I want to replace that. So this is a custom string in here. And my idea is this, in this object, I'm gonna use the translations for the home page. That's my idea, okay? And then I'm not trying to access the title, but the example one. You can name it something better, of course. And if I save and refresh the page, look, I got the translation. As you can tell, I have now updated the file and I'm using the example 1 and example 2, which results on this. Okay, and I am inside the Portuguese idiom. I can now navigate to Spanish and it works, and I can also navigate to French and it also works. And of course, if I try to access one language that does not exist, like English in our case, I will see the 404 page not found because this locale is not defined inside our messages folder. But this is all good, but as you can see, we are using the URL to manually type everything. What I want to do next is to create a small header where I will render the flags, the country flags, so the user clicks the flag in order to switch the idiom. And here at the bottom, I also want to add a footer. So let's start with the easiest, I think, which is the footer. Right. I went ahead and made a few changes to the code. These changes are related to the UI part, okay? But because the focus of this tutorial is not the UI part, I will just briefly explain you what I did. So, firstly, I added the images folder inside the source folder, and I have the flags that are actually necessary for this tutorial, okay? And this setup file, yeah, this is what I showed you earlier. Then we have the flags that I'm using inside the UI, okay? I also added the typical components folder that you must be familiar with by now. And inside, I only have two components, the footer and the navbar. The footer, as you can tell, it's a regular, simple component, but I'm translating this string, footer. And as if you remember, all of the files also have the footer string, okay? And this is all about the footer. Then there's a bunch of Tailwind CSS classes, but you can go over this on your own. I also created the navbar component, which is the typical header that contains the nav, and I'm using the link, next link component to link from one page to another, okay? So this is also simple, nothing impressive. Now that you have your components created, I mean inside the components folder, of course, it is time to import them and use them. And you do this typically inside the layout file. But pay attention, at this point you do have two layout files. You have the one inside the app. If you go up, let me just close this, and you have the typical file that you would expect before trying to use this i18n, but because you're using it, you also have another layout file. So make sure that you update this file correspondingly. People mess up sometimes in this step. Hopefully you won't. And now we can actually try to run our development server and see if this is working or not. Let's do it. As you can see, this is now working as expected. So this page is fully in Portuguese. I can switch to French, and this is French. And if I click here, I get Spanish instead. So this is all working, okay? And I can actually try to access just localhost, and this will take you to the last idiom. So if I go to French and I try to access localhost, takes you to the last idiom. And that's it pretty much. Do you still remember when we defined the default locale to Portuguese? So if I now run my application, npm run dev, this is going to open in Portuguese. Localhost 3000. It's doing what needs to be done. And there you go, boom, Portuguese. Hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. This time I will add timestamps and the source code will be linked below. I think this tutorial is even better than the last one. Hopefully you agree and will help me to reach a lot of people that is trying to learn about this topic. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.